Hey everyone, it's Julie B. I just wanted to stop in here really quickly. One question I've been asked a lot lately is how did I get a book deal? And I've been wanting to record this story anyways, and so I thought I would just go ahead and record it on here today so that I can then share it with you and have it, available to point people into. So let me take you back. Let me tell you a story. In December of 2021, I, I had written the first draft of my book, and it's hilarious to say that because at that time it was 12,000 words, and I think when I ended, it was around 54,000 words, which is a lot, a lot of words. Um, but I had written my first draft of words, and I had hired a developmental editor, which is I've learned in this process, there's like 4 levels of editing, and by the way, I am capturing all of this in a PDF guide as we speak, and it's actually a pre-order bonus for my book. So if you want all of this in written form, and I'm not going to get into everything because in that document, I'm going to go through like the mistakes that I made, the things that I wish I had known before publishing my book with a traditional publisher, all of that stuff that I've learned along the way, and I'm still learning. Like this is one of those journeys that I don't think you ever stop learning on. But it's one of the questions I'm asked frequently is how did I get a book deal? Because a lot of business owners or practitioners, as my publisher calls them, he likes to publish what he calls practitioners. They write a book and then they never publish it, or they self-publish it. And for back in December of 2021, when I had finished writing the first draft, we'll say, of this book, I was for sure thinking I was going to self-publish this book. And I went through a lot of reviews of ways to do that. And the one thing I kept kind of hitting my head against the wall in the first part of 2022. So I'd written it, it was going through an edit, and then I was looking for who my self-publishing people were going to be. And I just wasn't happy with what I kept coming up with. Like it seemed like every self-publishing house out there had there was one thing they wouldn't do. Like, I had educated myself enough to know, like, the key pieces of publishing a book and where I really wanted somebody in the mix of publishing my book. So where did I want help? Where did I, what levels of editing did I want? What level of cover design did I want? And all of the providers I looked at, and granted, now some of them have shown up, and now I do have resources if you're interested in self-publishing your book. I have a couple of places where I can refer you to where I know they do everything from uploading to Amazon to, the 4 levels of proofing and editing to, getting an audiobook completed. So, but at that time, back in early 2022, I was really struggling to find one resource, and so I was reaching out to my friends who have published a book. I talked to a couple of them multiple times, and when and I mean, even to the point where some of them introduced me to their editors and their people. And I had continued writing the book, and I was continuing to put, work into writing Burned and writing about business owner burnout. At that point, the title of the book was The Business Owner's Guide to Burnout, which it's still that's what this book is, but it's a different title. And around sometime in June of 2022, I was just really freaking frustrated. I mean, I had looked at self-publishing, I have looked at hybrid publishing, which is another type of publishing, and I had looked at traditional publishing. And a lot of the traditional publishers that you come across, and I'm not going to get into the difference between those 3 levels of publishers. They all have pros and cons, I would say. And that's something that if you buy my book and get my How I Landed a Book Deal guide, the written guide, I'm going to talk about that in that guide. It's a bonus if you order my book. So you basically just order my book and then you're going to get that bonus for 28 bucks or for 14.99 if you buy the ebook. But anyways, so in early June, I was just really freaking frustrated because I couldn't find like I wanted a one-stop shop for this, and I wanted someone who was going to push back on me. I didn't want just someone who said, yes, this is a great idea. Yes, this, yes, that. And the two people who had read my book up to that point, where it was at that point, both of them said to me, Julie, your book is like Traction, but for business owner burnout. And on a whim, I'm not even kidding, on a whim one day, and this was after doing all of the research, after doing all of the digging into who should I, who should where which route could I go? This book almost didn't get published because I was so hung up on at this point. And it was late June, it was like mid-June 2022, and I had looked at traditional publishers because I thought, I think this is a good book. The thing's got some legs, and why not? Why not put it out there? I submitted my book on the website of the Publishers of Traction, and I will never forget that my pitch line was like Traction, but for business owner burnout, and that was my pitch line to the publishers. I didn't think I was going to hear anything back. I was like, I don't have that big of an audience. I'm, all of the imposter syndrome stuff you hear, all of the imposter, all of the I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, I don't have a big enough following, I'm a mess, I'm not a good enough business owner, like who am I to be writing this book, etc. All of that was in my brain, and I submitted it on their website, and less than a week later, I had an email from from the chief editor of one of their imprints. So they had created a what a lot of these publishing houses do is they actually have other publishing imprints underneath of it. So the main publishing house is up here, and then you've got, this group is for this imprint is for business books, and this imprint is for cookbooks, and this imprint is for popular science or whatever it might be. So the chief, the head guy of the imprint for business books at Ben Bella Books contacted me, and he asked me for a book proposal. And the funny story about this is here is probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned about writing a book. If you're going to go the traditional publishing route, you don't need to have your entire book written before you go and try to get that deal. You need a book proposal. And a book proposal is the best way I can describe a book proposal is a 30-page, 20 to 30-page book report on your book. And really, it's the marketing plan of your book. It's looking at competition, like what books is your book going to be like? Because what happens is the publisher wants to see how well those books have sold. And so he said to me, "Do you have a book proposal?" And I was like, "Sure, okay, yeah." I mean, so did I fib a little bit? Yeah, I did. I fibbed. I'll say that I did because I was like, I just wanted to keep the conversation going. So sorry to those individuals, but it worked out because in 48 hours, really, my team at the time pulled together a book proposal to help me out. And then I obviously went into it, tweaked it, made it right, did a lot on it. And we ended up creating in 48 hours, we had a book proposal. And I submitted the book proposal, and it was July. That by this point, it was around July 4th. So the editor, the person I was communicating with, he let me know he was going on vacation. So I was like, oh, this is so second lesson. If you want to get quick responses, don't submit in the summertime or the holidays because you're not gonna get quick responses. So by this point in time, it was, I think, the week before July 4th. It was right around that time. And so I was like, okay, great. So I submitted the book proposal, and then, I mean, I didn't expect to hear anything back. And like 2 days later, I had a message from him saying he wanted to meet with me, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy how this is happening. Once again, am I good enough? Do I have enough content? Is this a strong enough pitch? All these things. But the closer you get, the more you're like, oh my gosh, this could actually happen. Oh my gosh, this could actually happen. So I had the meeting. So we went through that. I had the meeting with him. And then it was after that. It was after the meeting with him that he was then going on vacation for a week. And I was like, okay, great. It was July 4th, and so I just, like, waited, and so a week went by, and I was like he was on vacation, so totally fine. And then another week went by, and, I was thinking, "Oh, this isn't gonna happen," happen because they had been so freaking responsive before that, and I was shocked by the responsiveness. I mean, it was just, it felt great to have somebody respond, even just to, like, be open to talking about it and to validate that I had written something of value. And so a week went by, another week went by, and then early into the next week, I got up the guts, the nerves. I was nervous. I didn't really want to know the answer, but I did really want to know the answer. So I reached back out and I was like, "Hey, hope your vacation went well. Just checking in, just to follow up to see like what they thought and where we were, etc." And about a day later, maybe 2 days later, I get an email back from him, and he said to me that they were if I mean, it was couched with a caveat, which I was expecting this no matter what. So he said, um, basically, I would have to really do a lot of the sales up front. Like, he was like, "You're gonna have to put a lot of your energy and resources into selling." Well, I was gonna do that anyways, so it was like, "Okay, yeah, absolutely. That's a no-brainer." And and then he said that, if you're willing to do that, we wanna bring you on as an author, we wanna make you an offer. Um, and then, like, a week later, I had the contract, and I'm not kidding, it was almost 1 month to the day from the day that I've submitted it, which I think it was June 21st of 2022, where I submitted the first, like, inquiry on the website, and then it was July 21st when I actually inked the contract and got my first half of the advance and had become, like, a signed author with a traditional publisher. And listen, I this is the more I talk in this industry, the more I talk to authors. So in this time, I've over the past couple of years, so the one thing I want to say is it takes when you go traditional publishing, and this is my experience, and I've heard that this is a fairly normal experience. It takes like 2 years to get your book published from the time you sign the contract. So I remember I had been writing this book since I would say September 2021. And so it'll be about 2.5 years of actually writing, or no, 3.5. Well, how long will it be? Like 3.5 years of writing the book, going through the process of publishing. No, 2.5 years. Yeah, about 2.5 years. Um, Before it's even available to be like in your hands. This is 2.5 years of my life, and I figure by the time that I'm done promoting, I don't think I'll ever be done talking about burnout or talking about business ownership, but I figure I have another year and a half of promoting it. So it's a 4-year commitment with a traditional publisher. So the one thing I would say is whatever you write about, make sure you want to be talking about it in 5 years from now. And I know sometimes it's hard to figure that out, but I know that burnout is something that causes business owners to go out of business. I walked away from millions of dollars because of burnout, because I couldn't get it together. Or no, it's not even that. Like, I just couldn't do the work anymore that I was doing. I had lost my way, and I got so deep into burnout by the time I realized that I knew I had to get out. Like, it was life or death for me to get out of my marketing agency. Um, Luckily I was able to exit that successfully in a way that made it, I made some money on it, but like I left millions on the table because of burnout. I mean, I will straight up say that. I don't want to I'm still dealing with some of those feelings. I'm not quite ready to talk about that story yet, but I will say I know I left millions on the table because of burnout. And I don't want other business owners to have that same struggle. And so I want to help people catch it before it gets that bad, so we can turn it around so you don't have to go through that process. But anyways, this is about how I landed a book deal. So I was frustrated. I submitted it, and it was, I mean, part of it, I think, was timing. It was 2022, so we had just, gone through 2 years of awful with COVID. COVID was still there, still a thing. Just a lot of turmoil, just a lot of people questioning what they were doing and why they were doing it. And I wrote a book about that specifically for business owners because there wasn't anything out there when I needed it. So that's why I wrote this book. because when I needed a book, it wasn't there. It wasn't there for me. And if you're like me as a business owner, two things that help me get through burnout are action and support. And I was willing to act and I was able to get support, but I didn't know what steps to take in action. That was the problem, is there was no system, there was no process, there was no do this, then this, then this, then this, or if you're at this stage in burnout, do this, which is pretty much how I wrote my book. I was frustrated about that. And I put my story in on paper, and then I put my process that I created on paper in the hopes that it can help other business owners. So anyways, I went through that whole process of being frustrated, not being able to figure out how to get my book self-published in a way that I could be peaceful with, that felt whole to me. And then going into, screw it, I'm going to submit my book because I think it's good enough. I'm going to submit my book to a traditional publisher. And a month later, I had a book deal. And I will tell you, I think the most important piece is, like I said, I'm documenting all of this in an actual guide. If you buy my book, if you pre-order it by April 30th, this is one of the bonuses you will get, how I landed a book deal. I'm documenting that. I'm documenting the timeline, lessons I've learned so far. I haven't learned all the lessons yet. I can tell you that. I've made mistakes. I'm going to put that in there. So if you want that, buy my book, get on the pre-order. Basically, you just go to my website, you buy my book, and then you go to my website, sign up to get the pre-order bonuses. That's it. That's all I got to do. But when I got this book deal, I knew, I was like, for this individual, for my publisher, and my publisher, the guy that brought me in, he has been quietly behind the scenes of some of the biggest books in the business owner world that we've all read. So he was involved with the E-Myth. He was involved with, if you're familiar with Jeffrey Gitomer and the Sales Bible, like, my publisher is the guy who kind of found that person. So some of the most popular books about business over the past 3 decades, and this is something I learned about him afterwards, and just talking to all of these other connections about how well respected and how good of an eye he has. So it made me feel like, man, for this person to pick me when they only pick, I think they only publish like 100 books. I don't even think it's 100. I don't know. It's somewhere between 50 and 100 books a year, I think they publish under his imprint. I felt very special, very honored, very lucky, very blessed to get this. But the whole point of me telling you this is, I would say most of the time, self-publishing is like a great route for 80% of business owners who are writing a book, because if you're not, mainly because of the time that it takes to go through traditional publishers, it takes forever. Like, if you have an idea that you need to get out now, traditional publishing is not for you. I can tell you that straight up, because it's taken forever for me. I feel like it's taken forever. 2 years of time is not forever, but in my brain, like, when you're waiting for this thing to be birthed, when you're waiting for this thing to come alive and finally have its legs and be a fully formed product out in the world, 2 years feels like forever, but it's really not. But yeah, traditional publishing is not for everyone. But if you are interested in traditional publishing, I was discouraged to go that route, and by a lot of individuals, by a lot of people who were like, everything you've heard, like, you can't get a book deal, you can't get a book deal, you're not going to, you want to do self-publishing because traditional publishers are awful. They are not awful. I am so freaking thankful that I have my publisher, because they have been amazing. From the editing to the final, just all of it. They have been amazing. Their marketing team has been just so helpful. Their design team has been, the cover design is probably a thing where we butted heads the most. But even that process, they were very, like, black and white about it. And they were very clear about, like, why they had designed the cover that they had and why just very educational. They worked with me. Um, they did not make any editorial changes that were made to my book made it better. They did not rewrite my book, and they also didn't just take what I gave them and publish it. They really read, I mean, I feel like their team has probably read my book more than I have at this point, which maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but I do feel like that's true. Like, they combed through it, they made it better. I can't even begin to tell you all the ways that they've made my book better. So, whether you go self-publishing, hybrid publishing, or traditional is up to you. There's pros and cons to all of it. I can't speak to self-publishing and I can't speak to hybrid because I haven't done them. I have done research to know, like, if I were going to do X, I would go with this type, or if I was going to do Y, I would go with this type. But I do think if you want to be an author, if you want to be a speaker, if you want some additional, like an additional level of credibility that still exists in a world that you are not aware of yet, there is a world where having your book traditionally published opens doors. I can tell you that much. I think I'm just at the forefront of some of those doors being open for me. Um, one of the doors that I can think of is here locally. Getting my book into local bookstores has not been hard. It's been literally an email saying that I'm a traditionally published author with my publisher, and here's my book. And it's that has been like, that's just opened doors very quickly for me. And I know that there are other doors that are yet to be opened that I have not even found yet that I think that traditional publishing will open for me. So I do think if you want a career as a speaker and an author, if you want to be known as an author, traditional publishing is a good route to go if you can go that route. If you want to use your if you want to just use your book, if you want to use your book as a marketing piece, and that's really the primary goal of your book, then self-publishing makes a lot of sense because you usually you want to get that that marketing piece out into the world, and I think a book is probably one of the best marketing pieces you'll ever have. I'm not the originator of that. There are people who have told me that many times, authors and people who help people publish books. But I think that there is a time and place to go the traditional published route and to let your book get into the hands and have somebody else have a vested interest in your performance, which has been, I feel like I have a boss. That's another, I don't know, for entrepreneurs, it's a little bit weird feeling like you have a boss sometimes, but I do feel like my publisher is my partner, but at the end of the day, they are watching my performance. And so, there are things that I needed to get done and show so that I can get a second book deal. So anyways, that's a lot about what I've got going on. I cannot believe I've just talked for like 25 minutes about this. So I'm going to wrap this up. But if you want to get this in writing, if you want to hear, if you want to see more about the behind the scenes of what I've gone through, definitely, I mean, obviously buy my book and get the pre-order bonus of how I landed a book deal. It's going to be one PDF guide. I'm going to tell this story, and then I'm going to give a timeline and then pros and cons and what I've learned along the way, because I had to get educated about being a published author. I mean, I've met a couple of literary agents along the way, which is not something that I had, but I maybe want next time. Like, those are the types of things that have shown up, like the audiobook deal and how that has come about. I don't think I'm probably not, I still don't technically know, but we're getting too close, I think, for me to be the reader of my audiobook. And I've actually had multiple people who are in the industry tell me that I need to not read the audiobook because of how hard it is to do. So there's just so freaking much that I have learned. And I want to share that with you because I get asked about it a lot. I do get asked about it a lot. And really, all you got to do to get all this information. This is probably, I'm not going to teach a class about it, I don't think. And I would consult with somebody about this if they wanted that information. But I think this is probably the best way for you to get this track that I've taken and how I've taken it. And it's not going to be my story is not going to be your story, but I think I've learned a lot along this journey, along this path of being a traditionally published author that is valuable for people to just help them decide if it's for them or not. quite frankly. So, yeah, please buy my book. It's all over my social media. Links are all over it. So, buy my book, and then you go to my website and you enter your order number in the form that's on the page on my website about my book, and then you'll eventually get this. It's kind of like a fourth. I think it's the fourth bonus that I'm rolling out. So you'll get those other bonuses first, and then this one will come. But that's what you got to do to get this guide. So all of that is to say a little bit about the story of how I got it. I'm putting what I learned into something that is tangible that you can have. So yeah, just support and honestly support your local authors. Pre-ordering my book is so important. I can't. It's any order is good, but a pre-order is extra special good. Like it's the best thing, one of the best ways you can help me right now because that helps me and the sales team at my publisher go and say, well, she's already pre-sold this many books. So you want her on the shelves at Barnes and Noble, or you want her on the shelves in your local bookstore. That's why pre-orders are important. It also typically dictates if your book becomes a bestseller or not. So that's why there's such a push for you to buy my book before it's actually published. Trust me, no one is more excited and more anxious about actually having the book in the hand than I am. So I understand, like, we don't live in a society really where you order something and you wait for it. But I'm just asking you to please order my book because it will help me so much. It proves to like the Barnes and Nobles of the world that this is an author to pay attention to. And you get all those bonuses, like tons of bonus content that you get right now. So like $2,000 worth of bonuses. So just please do that and support your local business owners, support your small business owners, because that's what I am. All right, everyone, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into this. I hope you found it helpful. And let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. But yeah, have a great weekend and I'll see you soon.